I'm L.A. Marzulli. I'm a filmmaker, author of 13 books. Number 14 is about to come out. We have 27 films in our catalog, and by the end of the year, I think we'll get up to 30. We've got 3 people working on stuff. So I'm out in the field. I'm a researcher. I've been sort of all over the world, kind of like yourself. I love what I do, and we've got more things on the docket. And we just came out filming from Ohio, and what we discovered there was absolutely mind-boggling. That film should be out early next year.
L.A., I know that you spent time with Ron Moorhead in South America. Mm-hmm. And that was about the elongated skulls, right?
Correct.
And you did DNA on that, correct?
Yes, we did, extensive.
Tell us about that.
We are the only team that I'm aware of, although Brian Forrester did bring a team from Gaia TV apparently down, and they took 100 samples, and they were able to find nuclear DNA. We sort of teased a little bit of a nuclear, but never really got a profile. But we did get, out of the 58 samples that we took from 18 skulls, and up till that point, we were the only team on the planet ever to do that. Actually, go down to Paracas, got 9 skulls from the ICA Museum, 9 skulls from Senior Juan's Paracas History Museum in Paracas, Peru. And we took 58 samples out of the 58 samples. And our protocols were, we've had people look at the film and go, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Because we had a lab that sent us, I think, like 42 different lab suits. So Mando Gonzalez and I we would change out of our lab suits, which is headgear, masks, full-blown lab suit from, double sleeves, boots, the whole 9 yards. And we would change out of those lab suits every different skull that came in. We'd walk out of the room, remove them, blow each other up with compressed air, don new lab suits, and go in, take fresh material, usually from the underside of the skull where the foramen magnum is, and then flag and tag that immediately. So the chances, and here's the deal, if everything was contaminated like an naysayers, then why didn't we get nuclear DNA? We didn't get nuclear DNA from that, but we got a lot of mitochondrial DNA. A preponderance of mitochondrial DNA coming from the female line of the equation, as it were, the maternal line of the equation. It rewrites history. It shows a Middle Eastern connection, and that was our hypothesis going in. Could these be remnants of the Nephilim that we find out in the biblical prophetic narrative 3,500 years ago? Lo and behold, we're getting mitochondrial DNA from the Levant, from the Druze population, from Eastern Europe. That rewrites history. It's not supposed to be there. And of course, the academics and the archaeologists go, it's all contaminated, it's all contaminated. It's not all contaminated. That is a straw man argument, and it's incredibly disingenuous because our protocols were above board. And one of the skulls, the little baby skull, it was a mummy. It was found, and the backstory is this: in Paracas, there's this place, and it's an ancient graveyard called the Chongos Necropolis. Ancient graveyard. There are mummies in there that are thousands of years old, literally. In fact, the iconic Chongos skull that you see when you go on the internet, that came from Chongos. And the Wakaros, the grave robbers, they're the ones that go in. They find these things, they sell them on the black market, and they wind up in the museums. That's how that works. So the mummy skull, the Wakaro took us to the place where he dug this thing up. It was wrapped up in mummy wrappings. We unwrapped the mummy wrappings at Senior Juan's Paracas Museum. Very fastidiously, very carefully. The late Joe Taylor was the one who did that. Ron Moorhead was down there with us at the time, and we carefully unwrapped the DNA. While we were unwrapping it, the skull, let me do it again. We carefully unwrapped the skull, and when we got down to where the hair and the scalp was, some of the hair came off. That was immediately put in plastic bags with little pieces of the scalp and all that, tag and bag, the whole deal. And so that's what we sent to 3 different labs. That sample, that's about as pristine as you can get, okay? And there's no collusion between the labs. And the labs all come back U2E1, which is Eastern European. That's not supposed to be there. And so does it prove that these entities are Nephilim? No. But in our film, which is DNA, the final results, it's a multidiscipline team. We've got some geneticists, we've got archaeologists, anthropologists, medical doctors, surgeons, optometrists, I mean, this whole multidiscipline team, all looking at these artifacts, these elongated skulls, it's genetic, it's genetic, it's genetic, it's genetic. And the smoking gun was really, hats off to Rick Woodward, who was our team anthropologist. And what Rick did, unlike anybody else before him, he turned the skull over and he looked at the position of the foramen magnum. The foramen magnum is where the spinal column attaches to the base of the skull. In a human being, it's dead center like this. In the Paracas skulls, it's moved all the way back to the rear plate, to the occipital plate. If it's any further back, it's outside the skull. When we were at the we were at the Ica Museum and we were extracting samples from 9 skulls at the Ica Museum. What was amazing was I asked the head archaeologist, can we examine the Chongo's skull? And I told him why, because at this point in time, we knew about the foramen magnum. A year prior to that, we didn't, but now we knew. And all I wanted to do is see where the placement of the foramen magnum was. So there's nobody at the museum. We get favor, we have favor. And they let us in. And they turn on the lights and the whole room goes bright, and these two, archaeologists or whatever, they roll the case out with the Chongo skull. I mean, it's like I'm pinching myself because I can't believe we're getting to do this. And they take the thing out, and this is all on film. All of it's on film. It's in our film on the DNA. And Mondo, who speaks Spanish, Mondo Gonzalez, our lead archaeologist on the team, tells them to turn it over. So she carefully rolls it over, and then on camera you hear me say, oh my gosh, it's all the way in the back. The foramen magnum is positioned so far to the posterior, to the occipital plate, the rear plate. I mean, if it's any further back, it's outside the skull. It's a smoking gun.
What does it tell you?
It tells me that there's an outside force, an outside entity. We can get in how deep you want to go, just whatever. But there's an outside entity which is manipulating the genome.
Which is a great segue into the Bigfoot DNA project that Scott and I and Dr. Ketchum worked on. What do you think about that?
I think your research is absolutely incredible. And Scott appeared on our show numerous times. I never met Scott, but there was a real camaraderie. He's just a great guy, and he'll be sorely missed for sure. And Dr. Ketchum, I've had several conversations with her. It just amazes me how you can do the science and then they attack you. You're called this, that, and the other thing. Well, wait a minute, enough with the ad hominem attacks. What about the evidence here? Why is it that the DNA is showing something that rewrites history, that actually upholds your hypothesis, that Dr. Ketchum's hypothesis? So why, instead of a name calling, why don't we just talk about the facts? Stop the ad hominem attacks, and let's talk about what the DNA is telling us. What are you guys so afraid of that you have to resort to, this type of skullduggery or this isn't science. We're doing science, you're not.
Well, the claims they made against you about contamination, they made against us.
There you go. It's always that. That's the catch-all. Everything's contaminated, no matter what you do.
Yeah. So what did the DNA results tell you?
Well, the DNA results told me that it upholds our hypothesis that 3,500 years ago, these people came from the Middle East, which completely dovetails with the biblical prophetic narrative. As Joshua, and let me just set this up if I may, and I'll be as quick as possible. Everything in my worldview goes back to the Genesis 3:15 narrative, and I'm not getting religious here, okay? But everything goes back to this Genesis 3:15 narrative, where we hear this statement that the seed of the dragon, the offspring of a dragon, will be at war with the offspring of the woman. The proto-evangelium, the one coming from the woman, will crush the dragon's head. The dragon will bruise his heel. That is the gateway. That is the entire biblical prophetic narrative. And it's not taught in the churches for the most part. And it's been hidden away for thousands of years, but it's there in plain sight. And basically it's telling you there's going to be a seed war. And I owe Gary Stearman, because Gary was the one that illuminated this to me and others at a conference, the Nephilim conference that we did years ago. Something is going on. That statement is paramount to everything else. Seed war. The seed, the offspring of the dragon will be at enmity at war with the offspring of the woman. 3 chapters later, Genesis 6, the whole thing erupts. And you get the Nephilim are on the earth in those days, and also afterward. It is the reason for the flood. The Nephilim are the offspring of the Watchers, which are fallen angels, and the women of earth, human women, creating a hybrid entity known as the Nephilim. So we can believe it was written thousands of years ago. What I just said comes to us from the Dead Sea Scrolls. And most people don't even know this. So if that's true, if there's a commingling of the seed, it explains everything. Because all throughout history, we see the commingling of the seed. And so when Joshua and Caleb come into the promised land 3,500 years ago, you've got the manifestation of the seed war full blown, because you've got the 12 tribes of Israel that are there. And in the field of battle, you've got the Nephilim, the Zamzumim, the Emin, the Raphaim, the Anakim, the Longnecks, they're all there. So the seed war, and then they go at it. And most people have no idea of what this means and what this is. Do we see vestiges of it? Absolutely. It's global. It's my life's work. That's what we do. We're on the trail of the Nephilim. Native Americans, for instance, with some of the mounds and the archaeoastronomy that we see, they had nothing to do with this stuff. Absolutely not. We've proven it. Will the academics accept that proof? Of course not, because it just blows everything out of the water. So there's a mixture of the seed. And then there's this really enigmatic little book called Daniel, the Book of Daniel, written about 2,500 years ago. And the Watcher entity, which is talking to Daniel, and remember, these are powerful entities which don't, come in to our dimension and then download information to us. This entity tells Daniel, seal up the words in this book, Daniel. Seal them up. People won't understand the words in this book. Just seal up the words of the book. And then he says something which is that he gives us what I call a supernatural clue. And he says, and think about this, it was written 2,500 years ago. He says, men will run to and fro over the face of the earth, and knowledge will increase. That's the time of the end. So seal up the words until the time of the end, and then he tells us what the time of the end will look like. Men will run to and fro over the face of the earth, knowledge will increase. Well, it's flatlined from 2,500 years ago to Gutenberg. Then you get a blimp with the printing press. Yay, we can read, that type of deal. And then from there, it starts to go up to the Industrial Revolution. From there, it just shoots up into modernity. Now knowledge increases. And as we speak, men and women are running to and fro over the face of the earth. Guess what? There's a chapter in there, chapter 2. There's a verse in there. And it says this, written 2,500 years ago. Their seed, there's that word again, their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. To your point, the German with the vasectomy had no seed. That's why they didn't want him. He has no seed. And they're after the seed. But there's the word cleave is what we get for a marriage contract. I owe Jim Williamson for revealing that. Jim's research was really good, but there is no marriage contract. We just published a book by Karen Wilkinson, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. She was an abductee by the time from 6 years old on, and then she became impregnated by these guys 3 different times. In our film on cattle mutilations, we show exactly what's going on with the cattle mutilations, because bovine blood, cow blood, can be used in human transfusions. So when they retake that woman, she's impregnated, 3 months go by, at the end of the first trimester, she's re-abducted. How do I know? I'm talking to way too many abductees. She's re-abducted. They take the child from her, the hybrid entity from her. But where's that? How's that thing going to grow? It can't. They're creating artificial wombs. We might be the first people ever to really put all that together. They are creating artificial wombs with the material that they're taking from the cattle mutilation, because all the blood is drained. Bovine blood, cow blood can be used in human transfusions. So we actually kind of broke that story in our UFO film series.
One of the things we were talking to Ron Moorhead about was the DNA that we found. And he said that there was a project in Nepal where I think it was the National Geographic Society was looking for DNA, and they found it and it matched our DNA, and they never publicized it. Had you ever heard that?
I have not heard that, but I don't trust Nat Geo, because they have an axe to grind. They have a paradigm, and that paradigm is sacrosanct. And anything outside that paradigm is either covered up, deliberately obfuscated, just never shown to the public, and that's just the way they roll. That's just how it is.
You know how you stated that you couldn't find nuclear DNA in the skulls?
Right.
So we found nuclear DNA, but that even added more to the mystery because
Unknown.
unknown.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that. That's what Gaia TV said. Unknown primate. That's been our hypothesis from day one. That when you do get nuclear DNA, there'll be nothing in the gen bank, which will show it.
Correct.
Now there are naysayers which come against my research and go, well, how can angels have DNA? Blah 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 blah. Well, they do have DNA because they're created beings and they do reproduce. There's people that refuse to go down that rabbit hole. Well, then why do we get Genesis 3:15 where it talks about the seed war? Because they're mingling the seed. And it's the unthinkable, but it is the gateway. This is what we're seeing all around us. And now this thing, as you know, has ratcheted up like crazy. We're headed somewhere. The sightings are through the roof. UFO sightings are through the roof. Squatch sightings are through the roof. Something is going on. Something's about to break. And I have a theory with this.
I'm listening.
Okay.
Keep it short though.
Okay, because I can go long, but I won't. There is a once again, from the biblical prophetic narrative, it talks about in the book of Revelation that the beasts of the earth will be let loose. The Greek word is therion. I'm not making this stuff up. Written thousands of years ago. Why would it say that? See, what cracks me up is people think they know what's in the guidebook of the supernatural, but until a person opens the pages and then gets illumination, and I'm not talking about some occult initiation, but they're illuminated by the guy upstairs there, then things begin to be revealed. I've been studying this for 43 years, and I'm just a babe in the woods with it. The Greek word is therion, which means the beasts of the earth. As late Russ Dizdar used to say, these are not hamsters and giraffes. You know, and I know, both of us, and Ron Moorhead and Scott and Dr. Ketchum and others, that sightings have gone through the roof. The breeding program has accelerated within the Squatch community. They're like everywhere. Sightings are and now they're becoming more and more prevalent. Are these the beasts of the earth? In my opinion, they are. They can pop in, they can pop out, 12 feet tall, 14 feet tall.
Okay, you said something important. Pop in, pop out. So in Scott's video, they
Pop in, pop out.
popping in and out of what? A portal, multi-dimensions?
They're multidimensional, and this is why we're so dangerous. You can't kill them with a machine gun. Good luck. You can try, but the moment they see that, they pop out. I'll tell you a quick story. A woman in Canada calls me up, just like you. People call in, and so this woman, very remote house in the middle of nowhere, she backs up against the Canadian forest, so she's way out there. Nearest neighbor is a mile away across a field. She on the back door, she looks over, neighbor's hanging clothes, it's early spring, beautiful sunny day. Like 50 yards from the house, behind this scrub thing, scrub brush, whatever, a squatch just comes in, just appears out of nowhere. He's crouched down, which is typical, crouches down, and he's looking out at the woman hanging the clothes. And she's like, and who wouldn't be, jaw on the ground, and the squatch for some reason either doesn't see her or pretends, we don't know, but doesn't see her looking at him. And he watches the woman hanging the clothes for maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and then pops out, just disappears.
Ellie, what do you say to the researchers out there that claim this is Gigantopithecus?
It's not. There's no way. These are highly intelligent creatures. I mean, Ron Moorhead's work is incredible. We spent a lot of time with Ron. He's a great guy.
Great guy.
Great guy. We were out at the Lovelock Cave and all through Peru and all this other stuff. Ron, Sierra Sounds, it's just a great piece of research. There's a language that's there. They're highly intelligent entities. And this is decades ago now, that research. So when my research, I'm sure you've heard of this GLAD, the 14-footer, that's up in the middle of nowhere in an undisclosed location. I talked to a couple that actually invited me up. They have a 40-acre ranch. This couple are up there, and they got to meet GLAD. I'll just keep the names, out of this thing. But the gentleman, as the story goes, met GLAD. They were both young. He's out in the woods. GLAD's a teenager. He's a teenager. And they look at each other. They both freak out. Well, over a period of time, they become friends and they communicate. And GLAD grows into this 14-footer, huge. and now he's got a family, and his human contact is basically got a few months to live. And so he goes with this couple who live on the 40 acres. They go and they meet Glad, and Glad knows they're coming because word gets around. And Glad brings his family, but his family won't show themselves. They won't. But Glad comes in, and they're talking. It's okay, Glad, you can stand up now, because he's crouched, which is typical. And Glad stands up. He's 14 feet.
Do they communicate?
Yeah, they do, telepathically.
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 And can you tell us what state?
I won't say what state. No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
But I will say this, mano a mano. I have a standing invitation to go up there and not meet Glad, but this couple, they're in the middle of nowhere. The nearest my neighbor's like a couple miles away or whatever. And every day he goes bow hunting, or when he wants to go bow hunting. And the big ones leave the little ones with him.
L.A., what's the reason that Sasquatch are reluctant to be videoed or photographed?
I think that it's complex. When you talk to someone, you've got two camps. These are benevolent, they're wonderful creatures. According to the story I just told, Glad was a benevolent entity. But to someone like Scott, to me and myself, I think you, these guys have a real nefarious agenda with them. I don't trust them at all. And Scott believed, as I do, that these are Nephilim, some sort of a branch off the Nephilim. The elongated skulls, Ron Moorhead's work, back to Ron. But something's going on here. I think they're part of, if they are Therion, if they are the beasts of the earth, then they're being tucked away and hidden away until they're given the go. And are there good ones and bad ones? I don't know that. I can't make a blanket statement. I wish I could. Mary Joyce, I think is her name. She's a Bigfoot researcher, and she's been on my show. We've talked, and she thinks that they're all benevolent. I'm not so fast, citizen. Not some of the reports that I've gotten, not some of the things that I know.
So I wrote a book called Bigfoot, Wild Men, and Giants. And I laid out dozens of recoveries of giant bones through the Midwest and the East.
Sure.
And they all disappeared.
Yeah, that's what happens.
So what's the point in making them disappear? What is in that DNA that no one wants us to know?
It's twofold. And this is my wheelhouse, because I was out on Catalina Island. Because I had
there were some there recovered.
Yeah, and from Jim Watson, who told me about Ralph Glidden. And Glidden's out circa 1919 to 1921, and he's doing primitive archaeological digs. Well, he finds a 9-footer. So I get permission finally to go out and look at the archives. Remember, the only archaeologist in anthropology, you got to be a club member. But a $1,000 donation opened up the door. Hallelujah. So I'm out there, and there's nobody in the museum. John Borgina at that time is the curator. Jim Watson, so he's gone. It's just myself and Borgina, and I think it was one other person there. Way in the back, in the archives, is a huge vault, and Borgina goes, "What do you want? Give me the pictures." So he goes to the vault. He's taking out museum boxes like this. Everything's cataloged. So his secret cache of records that had been recently discovered by Ralph Glidden had been already picked through, but they didn't get everything. I just love it. And so I'm looking through. There's 2 tables with white cloth. My camera's set up on a tripod. I'm wearing white gloves. I'm picking every folder out, going through it. I'm there for like 10 or 15 hours in the archives going through stuff. I find pay dirt within an hour. You've been in the archives. I've been in the archives. You know what it's like. You find doodly squat most of the time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm finding stuff, and I go, "John, come over here. Look at this. What are you writing?" And he's going, "Oh my gosh!" And we're just freaking out because there's a large skeleton in the picture that doesn't belong there. And we've had that skeleton analyzed by 3 different researchers. It's essentially a 9-footer. They didn't get it all. And so Richard Shaw and I go back to the museum after I published the book, On the Trail of the Nephilim, Volume 1. We go back and we walk in, and I go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it." Richard and I look at each other. We just start laughing like 2 school kids that are about to pull a prank or something. I've got my book under my arm. We go running up, open up to the original picture. On the wall is the picture that I discovered. It's blown up like this big, but the skeleton has been cropped out of the picture completely out of the picture. So we hold the book up and roll the camera like this. So here's the original picture, folks. That, of course, went viral. We found a 9-footer out there. The reason why all this is under the radar, in my opinion, the Darwinian theory is sacrosanct in both the academic community and the scientific community. Everything runs on Darwin. The whole planet runs on Darwin. You go down to a museum in Bolivia or Peru or Karnak, France, wherever, it's the same thing. You see the little chimp, the knuckle-dragging chimp, somehow magically turned into a modern-day human being. That's it. There is no supernatural. There is no God. There are no supernatural forces or entities. It's all empirical. This is it. It all just happened over billions of years. Blah, 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 blah. Well, how do you explain the deoxyribonucleic double helix of life, the spiral of life, the DNA molecular structure? Oh, wait, you can't. Even Crick and Watson and Crick, the discoverers of DNA, Crick was a X-man. He knew it. This just didn't happen. You had to have some creator. When Ben Stein sits down with Richard Dawkins, one of the premier evolutionists of the 21st century, how do you think it had? Dawkins has no idea, but no one knows. And he's very effete about it. He's like, well, no one knows. Well, if you don't know, why are you feeding us this nonsense? If you don't know, just tell us you don't know. Maybe there's a creator out there who spoke everything into existence. Oh, gee, what a concept. So the bottom line is, all of this points back to the veracity of the biblical prophetic record, the biblical prophetic narrative, i.e. the Nephilim were on the earth in those days. And giants are the Nephilim. And they can't have that because the DNA will show something completely different. But not all the Nephilim tribes were giants. And this circles back to our DNA film where, okay, all the mitochondrial DNA is showing a Middle Eastern connection.
Yeah.
Rewrites history.
So LA, I go to a lot of conferences. It's usually me and maybe Ron against 4 or 5 researchers that claim that Bigfoot is an ape, gorilla, or Gigantopithecus. Then they also tend to argue vehemently that Bigfoot has no special abilities and that I'm light in the head because I report that they seem to appear and disappear at will, that they seem to run in the woods, but they don't run like you and I. It's almost like they're off the ground, and they run at a speed that's unbelievable.
You can't do it.
So what do you say to those people who say, I've been a researcher for 20 years, I've never met anybody who said Bigfoot has special abilities?
Well, they do, and that's a straw man argument. I mean, in the sense that you're saying they don't have special abilities. We're saying they are. So why don't you prove to me that they have no special abilities? And when was the last time anyone sat down with a Squatch and had a one-to-one conversation? It's just like, the Greys or the reptilians or the tall whites. No one's ever done that because these are all interdimensional entities with properties, what we would call supernatural properties. I'll just tell you one story. And, what do you do with a story like this? And this is the problem. You have a story like this which goes against the academics that it's, Australopithecus or whatever, right? So these 2 fire guys, 2 firemen, along with a Bigfoot researcher, the 2 firemen are joking it up. They're going to go and they're going to meet Bigfoot. Ah, ha, ha, ha. And they've had a couple of beers and, they're going with this real researcher. And she's had communication with them. She's one of those rare people that they will allow, for whatever reason, into sort of the inner circle. So she's communicating with these things, and I find that incredibly dangerous. So they're coming up to where they are, where the Squatch are waiting for them. And these 2 fire guys are so overcome with fear, they're terrified. They're absolutely terrified. They start crying like little babies and go running off the mountain. So how does that work? And then this woman is with her friend. And as they approach the Squatch, time slows down. And they both said to me, it's like walking through molasses. They're like, everything is, they can barely move. Time, space as we know it, there's something going on. And they can barely walk and move. And then it dissipates, and there are the Squatches. And they communicate with them.
What is the relationship between Sasquatch and aliens and UFOs?
I think there's a definite relation because this is conjecture, but it's a theory based on decades of research like yourself and being immersed in this 24/7. It's all I do. This is my life. I didn't sign up
Poor
for
guy.
Yeah, I didn't sign up for this. Trust me.
Yeah.
I'm a musician for crying out loud, but oh no, you're not. This is what you're really called.
Did you bring your instrument with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I just, but unbelievable. So, in our armed forces, we have pilots, we have Marines, we have a Navy, we have the Army. We have different people who hone their skills to do different things. So you've got the Greys, which are in my opinion, after decades of research, the Greys are biological construct. They are avatars to house something. What are they housing? In going back to the Nephilim, when the global flood happens, and it is global, I mean, every culture on the planet has a flood story. So when the flood happens, the Nephilim are there. Nephilim are the progeny of the Watchers, human women creating a hybrid known as the Nephilim. Not supposed to be there, soulless. They're wiped out. Now the disembodied spirits, according to the ancient book of Enoch, roam the earth, disembodied spirits. The dragon knows about these disembodied spirits, but they can't manifest. We know that someone, and for some people watching this, they can be, it's hard to follow because this is my wheelhouse and I'm probably going way too fast and I apologize for that. But a demon needs something to inhabit, whether it's a human being, whether it's an animal, whether it's an object. This is why occultists, let's say in Africa, or shamans, they will attach a demonic entity to a drum, to a statue, to something. They will bring it in. So it's attached to that object. Or a demon, like if you want power and you're a shaman, you allow them to come in. That's how that works. You allow them to come, you invite them in and they'll come in. But you don't want them to come in, trust me. So demons are disembodied spirits. So the Greys, in my opinion, are biological constructs. They're avatars for the demons to come in and inhabit. Now they can move in this dimension. They don't need to inhabit your cat when they come in to take you. Because there's no mouth, there's no reproduction system. They're just avatars. And we've had too many people come on the record telling us about the Greys being stacked like chairs, being Whitley Street were opening a drawer on board the ship, and there were the Greys stacked up on top of each other. What are we looking at? Too many abductees have said, yeah, the Greys are meat suits. That's what one person called them, avatars. So you've got the Greys, you've got the tall whites. Those are two completely distinct entities. You've got the so-called reptilians. You've got Sasquatch. You've got the mantis beings. In my opinion, this all goes back to the mingling of the seed. You've got the mingling of the seed to create different hybrid entities. Fallen angels, when I say angel, immediately people get preconceived notions. Got to throw that out. These are powerful, incredibly powerful entities. If one showed up right here, right now, we'd all be face on the floor. We'd all short circuit immediately. You can't stand in their presence. And yet, they can cloak themselves and appear as human beings. I've had one encounter in 43 years, which was mind-blowing. By a good one, which was just incredible.
Tell me the meaning of the serpent in the Bible.
The serpent is a dragon. Serpent iconography is used everywhere. It's all over the globe. It's always a serpent. It's never a kangaroo or a happy little bunny rabbit. It's always a serpent.
Snake?
Yeah, snake. When you go to the Great Circle Mound, the serpent is undulating. There's archaeoastronomy embedded in the Great Circle Mound. And the serpent, this is my work. I wrote the paper on it. But hats off to Gary Stearman and Mark Hirschman, who sort of pointed me in that direction. I've been to the Serpent Mound 3 or 4 times. The Shawnee had absolutely nothing to do with it at all. It is Genesis 3:15 screaming at us. But if you don't know what Genesis 3:15 says, when you go to the Serpent Mound, you don't know what you're looking at. So the serpent undulates over the Ohio terrain, and it's on a plateau with a meteor crash and the whole deal. There's a hidden cave where they found all the stuff. It's sealed up. Can't go there anymore. The pillar, which was at the head of a serpent, is now toppled over and down below. Fritz Zimmerman and I saw this. So the serpent mound shows a serpent with its mouth wide open. And guess what's in front of him? An egg. What is the serpent trying to do? Devour the seed, devour the egg, to prevent the seed of the woman from coming into fruition. I just got goosebumps. Because if you don't know what you're looking at, then you don't know. If you don't know the biblical narrative, when you go there, you don't know what you're looking at. And so New Agers will go, well, the serpent's birthing the egg to give us wisdom. Nonsense. Serpents don't birth eggs through the mouth. They eat eggs, but they don't birth eggs through the mouth. So you guys are just making up a whole bunch of hooey. When the moment we take a Genesis 3:15 narrative, dovetails together perfectly. And you see this iconography all throughout the mound culture. Serpent, mouth open, there's the egg. You see it in China with the dragon. Always the dragon trying to get the egg, the disc, always trying to get the egg. It's everywhere.
The reason I brought this up is Scott and I had spent many, many days over the years going up to Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And we did catch some verbiage on a ridgeline years ago. And we submitted that verbiage to Scott Nelson, and Scott said that was the only time he's ever had a recording sent to him that he could say was some type of language similar to the Sierra Sounds. He said out of all the hundreds he's had, that was the only one. And Scott said, I've been up here hundreds of times, Dave. The only time it's ever happened was you and me standing on that ridge. Now, when we were with Scott this last time, his EMF meter goes crazy at that spot. We walk up a little bit, and then he's going to go up on the side of this hill and get some things for us. And what does he step over? A poisonous snake. Right there. And he jumped 5 feet over it back onto the trail. It was so close to getting him. And then a couple weeks later, Scott lost his life. It makes you wonder if all of this is somehow related because of what Scott's been doing.
It is.
You think so?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This, when I went down to Paracas the first time in 2013, I didn't know what I know now. And I brought back stuff with me, and I'm not talking about artifacts. And I was hit ongoing for probably 3 years. I battled for 3 years, attachments, because that's what they do.
Kind of like hitchhikers.
Like hitchhikers. You don't want them. And when we go to an ancient site like this, we know better. We get prayed up. We don't do anything. We walk in, we look around, maybe we photograph. The batteries sometimes drain and all the other stuff. High strangeness happens, really weird stuff happens. Sometimes we have several Native Americans on our team. One of them, Doris in particular, can see stuff. When I took her to the Great Circle Mound at 9 o'clock at night in Ohio, she said, oh, they're everywhere. They're walking all around this place. I go, I don't see anything. And she goes, you won't, but I will. And they're here. They're walking around. Shadow people. They're darting in and out. They know we're here. When we were taking the implant out of that person, it was an hour and 20 minutes. We couldn't find the implant. One prayer changed that thing. What we're looking at is a war in another dimension, which is from time to time spills out into our dimension. Every shaman on the planet knows exactly who it is that they're dealing with. They know. They look at us, and Native Americans, they walk in this for the most part. We don't for the most part. So we've got this westernized view. Well, that all, it's a bunch of superstition. It's superstition until it happens to you. And until you're on the ground at 1 o'clock in the morning, kind of going like, what's going on? I'll just give you a story. I was at Fatima, Portugal. I was filming in Fatima because I had marching orders to go film Fatima at the 100-year anniversary, which I believe was a UFO event. And we did a deep dive on it from the handwritten testimonies from Father Fierro. So people coming off, I looked up and saw a dull silver disc. But what does that sound like? And that's not Mary of the Bible. It's a dull silver disc. Hello. It's not the sun coming down. It's a dull silver disc. And it's over and over again. But in 1917, there's nothing in the vernacular to talk about UFOs. That doesn't happen until mid-20th century. So, I saw a dull silver disc. What is that? That's a UFO. Anyway, I digress. So we're in the northern part of Portugal at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm awakened, and this is a true story. I'm awakened and I'm being hit. And I know what being hit is. When a demonic entity is coming up against you, it's very uncomfortable. It's not a happy, warm feeling. It's extremely uncomfortable. This was something else. This was what I would call a principality. This was not some low-level thing. This was a hierarchy. This was something that was very ancient, incredibly evil, and there to kill me. There was no doubt about it. No doubt. And I was curled up in a fetus position next to my wife, praying my heart out, just throwing everything I had at it, getting nowhere. And I go to the Lord, I'm leaving in the morning. This is way beyond my pay grade. I can't do this. And I get an answer. And I realize some of you out there, this sounds awfully woo-woo. It's not. Once a person engages in him, things begin to happen. If you allow him to lead you, he will lead you. And it's all biblical. He just said, trust the process at 3 in the morning. And I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. So the next morning I wake up, we got film crews there, the whole deal, and I'm talking to this philosopher historian. The cameras are rolling, I'm like really groggy, I'm punch drunk, I go, okay, wait a minute, I can't do this right now. Cut. And I asked the philosopher / historian, I said, what was here before the Christian era? What was here before the Romans and the Greeks? Oh, that's the goddess Mora. Now you got my attention. The goddess Mora? He goes, oh yeah. She would reveal herself as a beautiful woman and seduce the men. She would have her way with the men, and then after that, she would turn into a serpent and eat them. Now, I've only been up against a principality like that one other time. That was fairly recently. And I had a new, let me put it to, and I realize some of this sounds so woo to the uninitiated, but this is my life, okay? You can say, Ellie Marzulli's really out there. Or you can
We'll
believe
say that
what I'm
behind your
saying.
back, but keep talking.
So one day, about 3 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, I'm being hit. And I know what I mean by that, I'm being oppressed by demonic entities for whatever reason. And it waxes and wanes because you're on the front lines and I'm on the front lines. And they don't want this out. And so it's warfare. And there's nothing unique about this. The biblical prophetic narrative speaks of warfare, for we do not fight against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against spirits, against wickedness in high places. It's right there. So, what is this? This is what I mean. People who think they know about the guidebook of the supernatural, until they read Ephesians 6, you don't have a clue what's really going on. We're not fighting against flesh and blood. We're fighting against principalities, archons, wickedness in heavenly places. Oh my gosh, let's look around what's going on, for crying out loud.
Let's talk about heavenly places for a second. In the Bhagavad Gita, they talk about a big hairy giant.
Who's
Exist?
that? Yeah, I believe it does, of course. Yeah, they're not lying. They're not making this stuff up. They pop in, they pop out. They're here, they go back. And this is the way the other side rolls. And they're worshipped as gods over there, you know that.
Do you think we're ever going to have an epiphany with them where we could sit down and have a powwow around a table and mind speak to each other?
You and I are invited. Well, I'm invited, but I'm sure I could get you up there too. No film crew, no weapons. That's the rules. And we could sit down. They will come in at night. This couple that live up there, it's not every night, but they entertain them. I mean, apparently there's this, they've invited me up. I won't go unless I get marching orders. I just won't go. I'm not going to expose myself to that because I don't trust it. I just don't trust it. I do not think we will, because this is a closely guarded secret, just like the hybrids are. Like when in ufology, you've got these hybrid entities which are appearing. Dr. David Jacobs' book, Walking Amongst Us. They're here. They're walking around. We've had too many reports from people who've interacted with them, where they're cloaking. All of a sudden, half their face goes, iridescent. Things like that. The eyes will shift into snake eyes or whatever. I mean, it's just. People can say, well, that's just, but I've talked to not hundreds, but I've talked to lots and lots of people, and I'm a student of body language like I know you are. And you know when people are telling you the truth. You know, there's no dodging like this. They're not looking away. They're earnest. They've had an experience. They're trying to get their head around what they've just seen. So Dr. David Jacobs' book, yeah, they're walking amongst us. Yeah, they're here. But they're kept back to a period of time because they serve the dragon. They serve the dark side. They serve Hell's Kitchen. And when they're released, if I'm correct, if these are the Therion, they will wreak havoc on this planet in ways that we've never seen.
To who and why?
The dragon hates us. There's no doubt about it. The dragon knows at some point his time is short. Not yet, but we're ramping up to it. And he will release, all hell will break loose at some point, and he will release his forces. At first, it will seem benevolent, with the Space Brothers coming down and will give you knowledge and technology, and they will say this, that, you know, we, so-called ET, but they're not extraterrestrial, they're interdimensional entities. We created all life on this planet. We genetically manipulated early man. We started the world's early civilizations. Now at this critical juncture in human history, we, the so-called extraterrestrial, are back to usher mankind into a golden age. That's the lie. Because they did not believe the truth, God sends them strong delusion. That was prophesied 2,000 years ago. Prophesied 2,000 years ago.
The problem I have with all this is that we have, quote unquote, the smartest people, the biggest academics on that side of the table, and we're sitting on this side. How come those guys over there can't see the DNA? How come those guys over there don't do their own DNA project?
Bingo. There it is right there. And the reason for that is, if you're in academia, you have to toe the line. You're part of the group think. You are. You can't. I'm not a tenured archaeologist. I don't have a degree in archaeology. By golly, by gum, I've been out there in the field. I've been digging up all sorts of stuff with two archaeologists. You know, so I know. I'm still not degreed, but I've been out there. I mean, I'm boots on the ground, like you. I'm boots on the ground. You know, I'm not an academic stuck in a library reading from books. I'm out there exploring and looking and taking. Our team is the only team I'm aware of that took Paracas. We were the first. Gaia came in and did it, and they found their results were the same as ours, but they got nuclear that said unknown primate. If you're in academia, you're basically in a closed circuit. You believe what they tell you to believe, and that's it. I had a man recently, which is sort of hopeful, who came up to me at a conference. He's a microbiologist. He's on the other side of the line. He's over here in academia. He said, "Oh, I just want you to know something, that your DNA work has created quite a stir in the academic community." He goes, "No one will talk about it because you can't talk about it, but people are looking. People are kind of checking things out." I've had recently a bona fide geneticist from the academic community contact me, and I have given him samples, and he's trying to coax nuclear DNA out, so we'll see what happens with that. He remains anonymous for the reasons I just stated, because people's careers are on the line. Look, let me just equate it this way. Before 2017 with Commander David Fravor, if you talked about UFOs, you were wearing a tinfoil hat and you were a kook. Welcome to my world. But we know that they were here. We know that Roswell was a real event and something did crash. That's two of our films, which are in post-production. But until 2017, oh no, you didn't talk about it. Then all of a sudden, the powers that be magically shift the title. Instead of UFO, it's now UAP, and it's perfectly okay to talk about it at cocktail parties all across the United States and the world. So, unidentified aerial phenomena. On Tucker Carlson, Commander David Fravor, former F-18 pilot, looks right at the camera. When Tucker asked Commander David the question, "In your opinion, sir, what were these? What did you saw? Whatever I saw was not from this earth." What do we do with that? That's the first rung. The book I'm working on is the rungs of a ladder of disclosure. We're in rung number 18. When Representative Tim Burkett, who's part of a congressional hearing, says on the record, we can't even get to first base with these people. We can't even they won't even answer the question, who knows? They won't answer anything. It's like it's a waste of time. And then one of the other representatives, I think it's Scott, it doesn't matter. He says, well, there basically is this secret government. You can call it what you want. We get to live here, but it's no longer by the people and for the people. And that's exactly where we are. So the powers that be are leeching this whole UFO phenomenon out. Now it's okay to talk about it. And now it's like the phenomenon is real, not because L.A. Marzulli says so, because your government says that they have crashed UFOs or full intact UFOs in their possession. Well, it's the same thing as this. Until once it's out of the bag, it's out of the bag. And at some point it will come out, at some point.
Congressman Burchett, really good friend of mine. Wow. We went to his farm in Tennessee and filmed for this film.
Tell him I said hi.
So he told me, he goes, Dave, they're never going to give us anything.
No, nothing. No,
so,
closed door.
Ellie, what do you think about this statement that our government won't acknowledge what it can't control?
We are so far down the rabbit hole that they can't control the UFO phenomenon. They know who Sasquatch is. They know what's going on. I've heard stories, I know you have too, where certain areas are quandered off, the black helicopters, as they're retrieving a body or whatever it is. You get too many stories like that.
Do you think we can get a body?
Well, the Kandahar Giant, we got a body from the Kandahar Giant. That's why I was threatened from a guy from a deep state that came up to me in Dallas. I had death threats against me at that conference. And I had a bodyguard, which I didn't, I had two bodyguards, tailing me the whole time. That weekend in Dallas, there was a police presence in a tower out in the parking lot. There were death threats against me. I was approached by a guy from a deep state who threatened me three times, within the first 5 minutes of conversation. Kids would go missing, kiddie porn on my iPhone, and my car would blow up or have an accident, all within 5 minutes. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, I get that. I'm a worm. I totally get it. But I looked at him and I was dead serious. But you can't touch me unless the Most High God gives you the permission to do that. And that's what I firmly believe. And he said, I just want you to know, the reason why I'm here is because of the work on the Kandahar Giant. Because that Kandahar Giant was real. It was 12 feet. It wasn't a Sasquatch. It was a huge Nephilim. How old? We'll never know. The thing stunk to high heaven. And I've spoken since then to other witnesses, which I will not name because we don't want to get them in trouble. But I've had this thing vetted 3 or 4 different times.
Where is it? Where is it?
They're all flown back to the landing place, allegedly, is Washington, D.C., where they're processed and then flown to Wright Pat. Everything's at Wright Pat, there's no doubt, in my mind. That's where the Roswell crash is up at Wright Pat. The bodies, Wright Pat. The Sasquatch, Wright Pat. Everything's at Wright Pat. NS4.
So we're not getting any younger.
No, we're not.
So let's pretend that there's some real eager, smart researchers that are 40 years old behind us. What recommendations would you give them about moving forward in this world of Sasquatch?
Become a plumber. I'm joking. The first thing is, in my opinion, that these entities are incredibly legalistic. They're
Incredibly what?
Legalistic.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is there are certain protocols that they adhere to, that they are forced to adhere to. They just can't kill you outright. They just can't do that. There are certain protocols that are in place. And I know that sounds completely wacky, but it's not, in my opinion. There are protocols in place in this heavenly war that's ramping up all around us, for those who have eyes.
So in my humble opinion, one of those protocols must be you don't get photographed.
Exactly. That's why in the recent train video, what does Squatch do? First thing, he's taught to do that from the time he's young. Squats down. You can't, unless you know he's there, that train would go right by him. So he blew it by walking across and not squatting down. Maybe he didn't hear of a train, who knows? But the moment he knows he's sighted, he immediately crouches down. And we've seen this like in Scott's video, where the thing is coming through the gateway, elongated head, but it's crouched. It's not standing up, it's crouched. And that's how they're taught to do that. Always. They're always this cat and mouse game, just like the whole UFO thing. It's this cat and mouse. Why not just show up? They will at some point. At some point in time, they will be allowed to do this. But the protocols, and I realize some of this stuff sounds like, whoa, how do you know this? How can you be so sure? Because I've been studying this for like 43 years, like you. There are protocols that are in place in the heavenly war, which are sacrosanct, which cannot be breached, or they just can't be. They have to hold to these things. And if you don't hold to them, bad things happen to you, not to us, but to the other side. You just can't do this. Why is it that, I'll go way off topic here, but it does relate. Ancient megalithic sites all over the globe. Corral Canyon, 5,000-year-old site. Teotihuacan in Mexico, 800, 900 years old. They call them the Teotihuacanos. You guys don't even know what they call themselves, but you're going to tell us all about the Teotihuacanos. You're just making up names. The Hopo Indians. Hopo's a farmer. You don't even know what they call themselves. In site after site after site after site, all around the globe, every place I've been, it's the same story. We don't know who did this. They just disappeared. Oh, really? Isn't that interesting? Why do they all just disappear? And I'll just leave it at that because I'm working on something with that.
So, that researcher, that young guy, what direction are you going to give him?
I would tell him this, that if you want to get answers, real answers to what this phenomena is, study the biblical prophetic narrative inside and out. Accept the Spirit of the living God into your life. That's the first thing. Accept the Spirit of the living God because He'll teach you. The Spirit of the living God will show you exactly what it is you're looking at. He will give you marching orders. He will reveal things. He'll show you favor. He will, we've seen it over and over and over again in our research. So that's the first thing. You get him on your side, or actually you become part on his side. But you invite him in, he comes in, he begins to show you things. He'll connect the dots, just like he's done in my research. I mean, we're the only research team that I'm aware of that's taken the cattle mutilation phenomena and tied it back into the abduction and the breeding program. I have never read it anywhere else. Maybe there is somebody out there who's said that. I don't know of anybody. We tie it right into creating artificial wombs. We might be the first.
One thing that Scott talked to me about is that he had a belief that certain researchers were, lack of a better word, marked. And they know where we are all the time. And there was a point where I lived in Colorado. And I lived up in the mountains. And I came out one morning and there's 17, 18-inch track right in the path I take between the front door and the house. And it's right there. You can't miss it. Perfect track. Nothing else. No other tracks anywhere. Just this
deliberate. One. Absolutely deliberate.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we know where you are.
Yeah.
Hello. And Scott always said, you know, they come by, they're at the house, we're marked.
Yeah.
You believe that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. The day of the fire, we lost our house in 2018, November 9th, it's coming up, 5 years ago. Everything burnt. We're back on the land, brand new home, debt-free. It's amazing how, happy ending. The day of the fire, our neighbor, who lives a mile away, we're down here, and she's up here about a mile away, as the crow flies, maybe less. She's out taking pictures with her cell phone, click, click, because way over there in the mountain range, it's all glowing from the fire, smoke's everywhere. So she's taking pictures, and obviously it's the fire. She lost everything, so she's not looking at anything till about a month later. And she goes, "Oh my gosh!" She calls her daughter over, and she goes, "Scarlett, look at this." Scarlett goes, "Oh, it's probably a bird or a bug or something." And Judy, it's in our film. Judy expands it on the cell phone, and she goes, "Scarlett, it has windows, plain as day. That UFO, it's right over my house, right over the house, literally right over the house the day of the fire. You tell me why." So this is when I talk about the spiritual dimension from all this, man, we need to put on the armor of God, understand who it is we're dealing with, and walk in that authority. And because they're legalistic, no open doors. Can't have an open door.
We have a story here in the movie where a young lady was a guide at the Montana Vortex. And the Vortex has a lot of unusual things going on there. We spent a day there and you wouldn't believe what came out the day we were there. But she took a selfie looking into the background behind her, and she never even thought, she just looked at the picture, Days later, she's looking at it on a big screen, and there up in the corner, it's a Bigfoot in the picture, standing there. And she turned and walked right the direction. She said David wasn't there. But something had been messing with her at the vortex for days before, throwing rocks at her, nothing was there, things like this. So why would they show themselves under those circumstances? Do you have any understanding of that?
Not really. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe, the selfie, it goes up. Maybe he doesn't understand what a selfie is. Maybe he does. Maybe he thinks he's not in the picture, or he's crouched down enough where he won't be seen. I mean, there could be some answers there. But yeah, I mean, it's why did we get a UFO right over the house the day of the fire?
So you bring up another good point. A lot of people take photos, and when they're taking the photo, they don't see anything there.
Right. And then
when they look at the picture later, all of a sudden it's there. Whether it be a Bigfoot or a UFO, both circumstances. How do they manage that?
It's the same way like EMF meters and electronic equipment. You walk into an area and the batteries drain like this. These entities, I remember we were down in the Silistani Towers with Chase Klotsky, and she's completely loaded up with all sorts of electronic gear, and she walks into one of the circles, all the batteries get drained just like that. She's going, oh my gosh. She goes back down to the car, reloads everything, and goes back into the circle. Same thing happens again. So they're always, a lot of UFOs are by power lines. Here's the bottom line. I don't have all the answers. Nobody does in either the Sasquatch community or ufology. But in my opinion, they inexorably are linked together. It's all part of the same darkness, which is not dissipating. It's accelerating. It's growing. It's magnifying. And I mean, UFO sightings are through the roof, just like Sasquatch sightings are.
I know you travel with a film crew, so you're going to appreciate the story. We, my crew, we're in New York, and we're in a Sasquatch area, and part of the crew starts hearing some strange things. Now, these guys have been around the block. The guy who's our chief of videography, Clifton, he has patents on certain things. He's that smart. So simultaneously, as they're hearing these sounds, they're checking on their meters on their cameras, and simultaneously, all of the meters for sound go to zero.
Wow.
How does that happen?
These entities can control space, time, matter, and energy in ways that defy our physics. A perfect example of this, interviewing Dr. David Jacobs, interviewing Robert Salas, interviewing different abductees I've talked to over the years. So a person, classic abduction, they're laying in bed, entities pop into the room. They're frozen, they can't move, but their eyes are darting around like this. They're levitated above the bed. Well, we all know you can't do that. Now they're floated to the window. Okay, they're looking over, their partner is switched off, and what's going on. And they get to the window, and Dr. David Jacobs says it, and he says it sort of tongue-in-cheek, and the abductee wonders, are they going to open the window? But they don't open the window. They go through the window. How is it possible? So I will tell you, and this is really interesting. He leans forward and points. This is really interesting because I'm going to tell you a story, and you tell me what this sounds like. You tell me what this sounds like. So a guy is chained to a jail cell. There are several other people in the jail cell. It's like a holding tank. There's 2 or 3 criminals in the jail cell. They've got shackles on. And all of a sudden, an entity just appears in the jail cell. Doesn't come through the door, doesn't open the door. And the other 2 people in the jail cell suddenly are switched off. They're asleep. The guy holding, he's kind of foggy, not sure what's going on, but his shackles just fall off. All of a sudden, the door of the jail cell opens by itself. They walk out, they're in a corridor, they look around. The guards are all asleep, they're all switched off. They come to the end, there's the big door with all the locks on it, all the bolts and everything else. There's no way they're getting out there. Click, 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 door opens by themselves. He walks out, he's a free man. What is that? What story did I just tell you?
Tell me.
That's in the Bible. That's in the Bible. It's called Peter's jailbreak. Peter's jailbreak. And what's so imperative about that story, I tell that at UFO conferences just the way I told it to you. And people will go, oh, that's a classic abduction, LA.
Yeah.
But it's a good guy. It's a good guy coming in and rescuing Peter and getting him out. So both the good guys and the bad guys have the ability to manipulate space, time, matter, and energy in ways that defy our physics, completely defy our physics. And that's what we're looking at.
If we were going to do a film about international Bigfoot, Sasquatch, where would you go?
Russia?
El Nasty? Where else?
International.
You think the Maganpari in South America is related?
I think this is a global phenomenon. I mean, you know that they can pop in and pop out. There's gateways, there's vortexes, there's shortcuts to go from one. The shamans all know about this stuff. You can pop in from one area to another in a matter of minutes. Amaro, down in right near the border of Peru and Bolivia. The shamans all know this stuff. That's how they roll. But they give their soul to get the power. But the power is real.
LA, is there anything that we didn't discuss today regarding Sasquatch that we should have?
All I can tell you is that, if you want to get to the bottom of it, and I realize this is, some of you out there go, LA is so religious. Not religious. The Guidebook of a Supernatural, because that's what it is. The Guidebook of Supernatural has the explanations if a person is willing to do a deep dive, but you're not going to find it in 5 minutes. You're not. I've been studying this thing for 43 years, but it's all there. And once we realize the seed war, Genesis 3:15, everything just dovetails together. We are looking at the manipulation genetically of these entities because the dragon is outnumbered 2-1. He's trying to build an army. And that army will be released at some point. We can see that it's ramping up. It's definitely ramping up. And we'll see full disclosure. And at some point when the Therion are released on the earth, all hell breaks loose.
In your travels, you ever felt like you were being led by your nose place to place to place?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I've told these guys that in my last movie, I swear to you, the last 2/3 of the movie, I had no idea where I was going next. And it was just a natural progression. Something was giving me something.
I'll tell you a story. I've been a Christian for 43 years. And again, we're not talking religion. We're not talking monks with funny haircuts and stained glass windows and rosary beads and some goofy ceremony. We're not talking about it. We're talking about a indwelling of the Spirit of a living God in a human being, and then you're being led by your nose, by the Spirit of a living God, whether you know it or not. And so I got this call from Russ Dizdar, the late Russ Dizdar, good friend of mine, passed away a few years ago. And Russ calls me up one day and he goes, LA, do you know where you're going? I go, yeah, I'm going to Newark, Ohio. He starts laughing, that little laugh that only Russ had. So you know something's up. He knows something that I don't know. I go, okay, Russ, spill the beans. He goes, are you by your computer? I go, yeah. He goes, Google Nephilim Chronicles, Fallen Angels in the Ohio Valley. I go, what? He goes, Nephilim Chronicles, Fallen Angels in the Ohio Valley. So I Google it. Sure enough, Fritz Zimmerman's book is right there. I order it immediately, and the PDF, because I have a 5-hour plane flight from Los Angeles to Ohio. It's 5-6 hours. I read the entire PDF in basically just like speed reading the thing. So the next day, I'm at the conference, and I speak on Friday, speak on Saturday, and Saturday afternoon is dinner hour, and I'm driving. My driver's driving me. He's taking me to the venue, and I go, hey, do you know where this Great Circle Mound is? He goes, yeah, it's up here on the right, about a mile. I go, what? He goes, yeah, we've been going by it. Sure enough, Newark Earthworks. And I go, you got to drop me off here Sunday afternoon after the conference. Okay, no worries. So Sunday, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he pulls in the parking lot. There's not a soul there. Nobody's in the parking lot. I got the whole place to myself. Get out of the car. I go, pick me up in a couple hours. It's fall. So you have a time difference and all this. So I'm walking up this pathway, asphalt path. It's about 4 or 5 feet wide. To my left, these huge mounds of dirt. I know that they're part of the Circle Mound, but I'm not sure what I'm looking at yet. And I get up to the top, I look to my right, and there's the museum. And I look to my left, and there's the gateway, like this, which then leads to the huge circle, 1,200 feet, and encompasses about 40 acres of land. And I start walking to the gateway, and I pause, and I freeze. and my entire body is tingling, and my eyes are darting around like this, and I'm hyperventilating. I'm like, as I'm looking around, and I realize I am looking at the rest of my life. I am looking at the rest of my life. This will be, it's a gift from, you are at LA, you're being led by your nose right now. Spirit of the living God is leading you, guiding you, and here you are. I'll give you one more example. So we were supposed to go to the Mediterranean in September of this year, 2023. So it's March 2023, early March, late February, early March. My wife and I are on a ski trip, so the spring conditions, not so good, but I digress. And I'm in the shower getting ready to go out for dinner. And I'm thinking about September and can't wait to get over to the Mediterranean, film, blah, blah, blah. This is going to be great, you know. And I get a tap on the shoulder from the Lord. And the Holy Spirit goes, don't go. And I kind of go, what do you mean don't go? Because I've got everything, I'm starting to get things set up. You know, this is February, early March. I'm getting things set up for September. Don't go. So I kind of hem and haw, and okay, all right, because I've learned. I don't understand why, but I'm going to trust. I've learned that. So now my wife and I, Peggy and I, are at dinner, and I fess up and I go, we're not going to the Mediterranean. She goes, oh my gosh, why? And then I get my marching orders. And the Spirit of the living God tells me very, very pointedly, finish the rest of the UFO films before the end of the year. At that time, we had 3 films out. Now we are on number 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all in post-production. Everything, the table is cleared except to get those films out. Why? I don't know. But I know he's given me marching orders, and it goes back to what you're saying, being led. So if you ask him, if you just say, hey, who's leading me here? He'll, because, you know, you're obviously protected on some level. You've obviously been chosen on some level to do what you're doing, because out of the entire 8 billion people on the planet, it's just you for the most part, right? Mm-hmm. So you are being led, there's no doubt about it. Do you have divine protection? Yes, you do, to a point. Absolutely. You are being protected. I mean, you have to know that. You are being protected. You're being sheltered. Wouldn't it be great to just, you know, kind of get in contact with the protectors, so you know you kind of know who it is you're dealing with on some level.
So I mean, these guys know this, but you may not know it, but the person who made my first film was my son, and he took his life about 2 years ago, and he was deep into this subject with me, and sometimes I think it's him, and because he believed everything we believe. He was really deep into religion. He's the one that told me about the big hairy Krishna world, and he said, "Dad, this is much deeper than what we think. This is a huge topic," and he's the one who said, "We have to make a Bigfoot film together," and then he took his life. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking he's helping.
Mm. Sorry for your loss. Yeah.
That's it.